This is my take on the classic lasagna, but with a special twist, and some helpful tips to make your lasagna the highlight of any meal. Stay with me and I'll show you how to make this delectable dish. Today I'm actually making two lasagnas. Or lasagne? I've seen a lot of controversy out there about lasagna versus lasagne, which one is correct, what do they mean? But the truth is that lasagne is just the plural version of lasagna, referring to the actual noodles. But the term lasagna is generally applied to the Americanized version of the common casserole dish that we all know and love. One of the things I learned during my recent trip to Italy is the layering of the lasagna is very important. Until recently, I always tried to make sure the layers in between the noodles, sauce, cheese, meat, etc. were substantial. But after sampling many lasagne across many areas of Italy, it became apparent that Italian lasagna layers were all about the pasta, which actually makes for a more structurally sound lasagna with less liquid. So, in addition to the pasta layers, I'm also going to show you a way to reduce the amount of liquid, which I'm sure many of you have experienced when making this dish. First, we're going to start with the sauce. The reason being is that we want to reduce it as much as possible so that the amount of liquid is minimal. This will be the base sauce for both lasagne. See what I did there? One being a meat sauce or ragu and the other vegetarian. Like many sauces, I'm going to start with onion and garlic, but I like to grate them so they're much finer, and that way they liquefy a bit in the sauce. If you've got a garlic mincer masher doohickey, then you can use that. I don't, so I'm improvising. I'm also going to use San Marzano tomatoes because those are the best quality canned tomatoes you can get. I won't go into a bunch of detail about them. I'm sure many of you have heard about these, but one of the reasons I like to use them is that they are less acidic, so they don't require much, if any, sugar to help balance them out. I also like to add some balsamic vinegar to the sauce for a bit of zip. Plus, when balsamic vinegar reduces, in addition to the sweetness, it adds a layer of complexity to the sauce that I find appealing.
And that's my trick.
For the meat sauce, I've got some ground chuck and also some Italian sausage. I would normally go with a spicy sausage, but I'm making these for other people, and thus I have a mild version. I'm going to brown both of these in small batches before introducing them to the sauce. Next, we have mushrooms. I've got both dried porcinis and also some baby bellas. I like to use dried porcinis because they do have a lot of flavor, but using dried mushrooms makes it easy. Just give them a rough chop and toss them into the sauce. If you go with fresh mushrooms, then you have to clean them, chop them, saute them. Don't get me wrong, I love sauteed mushrooms. They're one of my favorite ingredients for many dishes, but it takes some time. So if you want to save time, feel free to go with the dried version. Okay, while our sauce is reducing, meat is browning, mushroom sauteing, it sounds like some sort of culinary poem that I just came up with, but the show must go on. I'm going to show you my secret ingredient. Most classic lasagna recipes call for ricotta cheese, and this recipe stays true to that tradition. Ricotta can be a bit blah for me, and one of the things you can do to concentrate the flavor and reduce the amount of liquid is to strain it through, you guessed it, a cheesecloth. This doesn't have to be perfect, just do your best. If you don't have a cheesecloth, don't sweat it. I'll show you a couple more tips to minimize the liquid, so you don't end up with a soupy, messy lasagna. Ricotta is ideal for lasagna because of its smooth texture, and you can enhance it with herbs and such, but I like to give it a bit of zip by mixing in my secret ingredient. Are you ready? Goat cheese. You can use regular or an herbed flavor as well, but goat cheese can be a bit pungent, and this small amount is enough to give the ricotta an elevated flavor without being too goaty? Alright, with all this going on, I'll discuss the pasta. I'm going to make some homemade pasta. Also, I'm going to chop up these vegetables for the vegetarian version. Don't shoot the cook. I didn't order this. I would never put broccoli in a lasagna. But sometimes we have to sacrifice against our better judgment when compromising with our spouses. I'll share a quick, simple recipe for the pasta in the description, but you can find this in another video I did for homemade fettuccine with a roasted red pepper cream sauce. Making lasagna noodles is one step simpler because you just have to roll out the pasta into large sheets, and then you're done. But if you're using box noodles, then you can buy regular or you can buy the no-boil version. However, I have found that you don't have to boil regular lasagna noodles either, particularly if your sauce has excess liquid, which works well because then the pasta absorbs a lot of the liquid, keeping your lasagna from being that soupy mess, but it also absorbs a lot of flavor. But if you've got a sauce that has been reduced like I have here, then you can give your noodles a quick bath in some hot water. Don't boil them the full time they're called for in the directions. You really just need them to be pliable so you can maneuver them easily in the dish. Okay everyone, we're getting close. Are you still with me? Now let's discuss layering. I mentioned this before, but you want to keep your sauce and cheese layers really thin and have more pasta layers. So we'll start with a thin layer of sauce on the bottom of the dish for lubrication, keeping the noodles from sticking. Then more sauce, and noodles, and cheese, noodles, and so on. Finally, we'll top it all off with some mozzarella and pecorino romano. Most recipes call for Parmesan, but I prefer pecorino. To each their own. Now, you have options. You can refrigerate this overnight if you want to prep for a meal tomorrow, or you can freeze it, or just move directly to the oven. Cooking times vary, but I find a lower temperature for longer results in a more cohesive casserole and keeps your cheese from burning. Also, covering it with foil first to help keep in the heat and avoid brown cheese. So we're going to bake at 350 for about 45 minutes to an hour. We'll check at 45 and then probably pull off the foil for the remaining 15 minutes. Of course, ovens vary, and nobody knows your oven better than you do, so do what you feel is best. Just remember the cardinal rule. You can always cook it longer if underdone, but you can't go back in time and uncook it if it's overdone. And there you have it, a delicious classic with a modern twist. You should always let it cool for a bit so the layers have some time to settle, which will make it easier to cut and scoop out. This will help keep each piece intact, and then you can top it with some parsley. Or I've got some basil here. Now look at that fantastic slice of lasagna. Thanks for watching everyone. Make sure you push all those buttons for more fun videos and delicious recipes. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.